Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see you as we are into week 2 of Pastor Brian being gone. And, it's getting shaky around here. People are on edge. They're nervous. They're afraid. We don't know really what to do anymore with Pastor Brian gone. Matter of fact, he texted me this morning and he says to me, as if he's in charge, right? Because we all, we kind of look to him. He's like, "You are preaching this weekend, right?" Like, yeah, I think so. So I replied to him. I said, "Yeah, we're all good." I said, "But just so you know, you'll be praying this weekend." So he appreciated that. Also, I told him, I said, "I preached about you last weekend because of the year 1982," and so he was glad to hear that we talked about him in his absence. So, look, I'm back. Oh, okay, good. So, anyways, that's what's going on. A couple of other interesting things happened today, like literally 10 minutes ago, and you're the first to hear about this. So, about 10 minutes ago, I get a call from one of our county commissioners, not the one who represents us here on East Tropicana, but I believe his district is up in Sunrise Manor, up along Sunrise Mountain and the temple and all that. But Tick Seegerblum's office called the office 10 minutes ago and asked me if I'd be willing to go to the next county commissioners meeting and do the invocation. So I said, sure, why not? And then I realized because it's a public forum and it's online, that sort of thing, I had a couple of things I had to say to them. I said, first of all, I promise you I won't say anything that would make you regret asking me because, it's a public thing. And then secondly, I got to figure out a way to advertise Community Lutheran Church because it's a free forum in which to talk about our church without it being over the top. So I don't know if I need to wear one of those sandwich board signs when I go up to do the invocation so that everybody online and in person can see that where I'm from. But sometime in August, I'm going to get all the details, but I'm going to go open one of our county commissioner meetings. So if you'd like to come protest that morning, I would welcome you to come and do that. So I actually always think that everything you are offered can be an opportunity to do something good. So when I was asked, I didn't hesitate or second guess to say, yeah, absolutely, count me in. So sometime in the first week of August, full week of August is that meeting, and I will go do that and look forward to, just being present and being present for us as a church, and I think that's good. The other thing I wanted to tell you, and this only probably applies to a small group of folks, but we've been having some issues on Saturday night of the worship going to our website, which also then streams out to the TV channels if you stream it to your TV. And we've been having issues with that. It's been going to Facebook. It's been going to YouTube. So finally dug deep on that. And long story short is there was some settings that were changed. We didn't change them from the website, and did a deep dive on that and found it. So I believe starting this Saturday, we should be live again from our website and from the channels. So I just wanted to let you know about that as well. So I'm really glad. And last Tuesday, when we were here, I never got a chance to mention again. Last Tuesday, we opened the broadcast, and it was my first Tuesday back from vacation. Pastor Brian was gone. My chair felt weird because somebody's been sitting in it, and then there were no decorations on the table. And when the song started, the door burst open, and Susan came and brought decorations for the table because they were all missing. And at that point, I knew I was back home and everything was right in the world being back in the studio with that. So, thank goodness, that my chair feels normal now. I got decorations on the table. Life is good. So we got that going too. But we had this great weekend this weekend in worship. And if you worshiped with us at 8 or 9:30, we did this wonderful gospel rendition of a hymn called "Love Lifted Me." We're not going to hear it today, but it was great and it was wonderful. And then throughout the weekend, we heard that wonderful song from 1982, but the gospel version, "Lord, lift us up where we belong." And and I was thinking about all of these things. And as a matter of fact, last Thursday, as I'm thinking about how I'm going to preach on this song and all these ideas were floating around in my head. One of the things that I asked Philip to do on Thursday was stick around after broadcast. I got to bounce all these ideas off of you. And he was willing. He had an extra few minutes. I mean, it was like 5 minutes. And I said, just stick around. I just want to bounce this stuff off of you, and I want some feedback. So I bounced off all these things that have been kind of darting through my mind. And he gave me his feedback on it, not yes or no, but like, well, here's what I think when I hear these things. And that helped kind of fill in the gaps of what I wanted to do. And so it ended up being something that I felt very comfortable with sharing with all of you in terms of the ideas, especially this understanding of horizontal living and vertical living. And when we get so trapped here in this and this only, we will neglect the bigger picture. We will neglect the vertical living, the vertical learning, the teaching that comes from above, and we get stuck really in an earthly mindset unless our social group, our horizontal relationships, are also pointing to the vertical, pointing to Jesus, pointing to the bigger picture in life. And it reminds me this, and I don't mean it as criticism, but I mean, we can hang out with and be close to Christian friends. Oh, we attend the same church, or we believe, we're in the same faith family. And when you're together, the topic of faith, the topic of what God is up to never comes up. It's almost like, you checked a box. Well, you're a Christian, I'm Christian, check. But that topic never comes up in conversation. It's just like a descriptor versus a lifestyle. And so you could be surrounded by Christian friends who never point to Jesus, who never point to that bigger picture of living, that vertical living, what God is calling us to, where God wants to lift us up. And so I want us to be not guarded, but as a cautionary word of kindness, of surround yourself with people who will talk about the faith, because those are the folks who will hold us accountable in a loving sort of way. They're the ones who will say, well, is that what Jesus would want from you? Is that the most loving way to respond to something? And we need those folks who are also tuned in to that vertical relationship that will encourage us to do the same. And so I just think it's so important that we think about the two components. And these are the same things that Jesus said to us. And we're going to actually come back to one of them in a little bit. When the teachers of the law said, what's the most important thing in Scripture? Love God, found in Deuteronomy. And then Jesus says, that's first and foremost. He said, but the second one is like it. And he says, love your neighbor as yourself. So horizontal and vertical. The problem is in our earthly state, what do? We get so caught up in living life here, we forget about this. And the thing that you need to remember is when you think about the cross itself of love God and love neighbor, what's the thing that supports the horizontal living? The vertical. The vertical is what enhances and allows horizontal life to happen. So when we neglect that, we lose out on a whole host of really holistic, peaceful living. And even though I'm chewing on this stuff and I'm sharing it with you, I'm still like thinking about all of its implications and what does that mean for us as Christians. So I'm not done thinking through this issue, and I believe because as I was thinking about it and going, this is really important stuff, I haven't had enough time to devote to it to develop it more. So I'm still chewing on that and still thinking about that. And as I come to more conclusions and more thoughts about it, I'm going to share it too, whether it's in a broadcast or maybe even my next blog post that will come out in the weekly email. So I'm still working through that, but I have no doubt that this understanding of being lifted up is absolutely tied to our willingness to go there, as opposed to not wanting that. And God never forces anybody to do anything they don't want to do. He may suggest, he may cajole, he may present, but if we turn our backs and say, I don't want that, he's going to be like, fine. And so to pursue a lifestyle where we are lifted up into that source of love, part of that is we can't go kicking and screaming. This is about something that you want, something that you want to pursue. And a part of that comes from keeping God kind of at the center of your life. And in that center, we actually heard a song this weekend at 8, 9:30, and 11, so all Sunday morning. We didn't hear it on Sunday night. And the song is called One Desire. And that is the beginning of this willingness or this openness to be lifted up to where you belong. And so that is the song we want to share with you today. Let's revisit that from this Sunday. So let's take a listen.
If I could have one desire before my life is through, even in my darkest night, my light would shine for you. If I could stop the hands of time, or make a wish come true, I would tell my heart to burn with fire for no one else but you. This is my one desire. If I could have one desire before my life is through, even in my darkest night, my life would shine for you. If I could stop the hands of time, or make a wish come I could stop the hands of time or make a wish come true. I would tell my heart to burn with fire for no one else but you. This is my one desire. This is my one desire.
So that's good. So I love that song, and it is one that comes to us from a Christian artist by the name of Lenny LeBlanc. And he is somebody who's been writing music for 40 years. And he's not as well known kind of publicly like Michael W. Smith or an Amy Grant or Paul Balash, another praise and worship leader who also writes music. But he has just been solid for the last 40 years. And he wrote this song back in 2002, and it was on an album of the same name, One Desire, and it was a live album, and the whole album is really good. But you might know, and you may not, but one of the other songs that he wrote that Michael W. Smith sang back in probably about the same time, 2001, 2002, he had a worship album. It was called Worship, Michael W. Smith. And on that live worship album, he sang a song called Above All. Lenny LeBlanc wrote that song, and we've done it off and on throughout the years, and we've done it on Good Friday on occasion, and Maundy, Thursday too. So, if there is a song that you might know him from, it might be from that one. But early in his career, he was not a Christian music writer and singer. He was in the music industry, and he early in his music career, he sang backup vocals for these folks: Hank Williams Jr., Crystal Gale, Etta James, Ricky Skaggs, Sawyer Brown, The Supremes, Joan Baez, Amy Grant, and Roy Orbison. So he had this kind of regular studio music career. And so he was often a studio musician and vocalist where he showed up on recordings, and maybe somewhere deep in the liner notes you would see his name, but that would be about it, right? And then he had a music partner by the name of Pete Carr way back when. And they were kind of a music duo and didn't have much of a secular success except for a song that I don't know, but it hit the charts called Falling, but I don't know it. Some people might. And so they were often an opening act for a bigger name that you would know, and discovered that he was touring and was bumped from an airplane flight because of a travel schedule, and that plane was the plane that Lynyrd Skynyrd was on when it crashed. And so he was slated to be on that airplane that crashed, and several of the folks from the band Lynyrd Skynyrd died in that, including their lead singer. And he was supposed to be on that. I mean, in a lot of ways, a lot like when Waylon Jennings ended up not getting on the plane that Buddy Holly was on way back when. And he was slated to be on that plane too. And so kind of dodged a tragedy in his own life, obviously. But later on, and maybe even because of that, I'm not sure, really became a dedicated Christian and moved from the secular kind of world of music into writing, producing, singing, and even worship leading within churches. And so I hope you enjoyed that song, and if you heard it this weekend, I hope you enjoyed it a second time, because I think it's a great thing. But the theme on it is, really, I'll ask the question, like, what is your one desire? And whatever your one desire is what you will chase after. Jesus talks about this in some of the parables. He writes that that when a man finds a treasure in a field, he hides it, sells all he has so that he can buy that field and the treasure contained within, or buying that pearl of great price, the one desire. And Jesus even reminds us to keep the main thing, to keep our eyes on the one who created, sustains this universe, including us. And it is easy to get distracted. Now, this goes all the way back, not just within Christianity, but we go back into our spiritual heritage all the way back to the time of Moses. And during the time of Moses, one of the things that happened is that God actualized a promise that he had made, that he would not only gather his people, but also give them the land promised to Abraham, which was several hundred years before. And as he gathered and formed his people, descendants of Abraham, the Israelites, the Hebrews, he wanted to organize them to be a people that reflected his values, God's values, in real life situations. And to do that, God had to give, thing I was talking about earlier, vertical teaching and vertical living, so that in the day-to-day, in the horizontal, that could be actualized, manifested. And the easiest and simplest way for God to do that so many years ago was through Moses, to give instruction that he wrote down. I mean, imagine having a nation of people with no organizing principles, no guidance, and just somehow expecting people to behave. And we see in the people of Israel, they struggled to do it. And even then, God said, I got to have to give instruction. He gave the law. He gave the Mosaic law, or the law of Moses. And within that, people still struggle, but the expectation was clear. And it's within that giving of the law that we hear the very original words that Jesus used to say what's the most important thing. He goes back to Deuteronomy chapter 6. And in Deuteronomy chapter 6, if you talked to any of your Jewish friends, they would probably, almost all of them would tell you, this is the centerpiece of the Hebrew Bible, which we call it the Old Testament, but of the Hebrew Bible, this is the verse of verses, or this set of verses is the number one thing. It's known as the Shema. And you've probably heard it before, even here, but this is what God gave to Moses. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. So there's only one God in the universe, not multiple gods. And this God is one and not many. And now here it comes. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And then God continues on, because there were more things given. He says, these commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them upon your children. In other words, teach your kids about them. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk on the road and when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads, and write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. So it wasn't just this matter of the number one thing, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength, but all of this instruction, he's like, not only giving it to you, but you got to pass it forward. You got to pay it forward. You got to teach your kids these things to live a holy life. You have to talk about them. They don't just, somehow you can't sleep with a Bible under your pillow and expect them to be absorbed into your life. And part of this is a cultivation of keeping God at the center of your life. In other words, making him your one desire, if you are taking seriously the teachings that come from God. And that applies whether that is Old Testament or even for us as New Testament people. It doesn't just happen. And so we got to work at that of keeping God at our one desire, because, God uses these three things: your heart, your soul, and your strength. If you give your heart to something else, then it's not with God. If you sell your soul because you want something or need something so badly, it's not with God. If your heart and your soul is with God, but you use all your energy doing something else, all your strength, devoting it to other things, you're not completely within God's authority or blessing, because you've given a part of that away. And so this reminder is not just a part of you, but your heart, your soul, your strength, everything that you are, is to love God. Because the promise on the flip side is God is always loving you. It's not a conditional, well, if you love God, God will love you. God still loves, but why wouldn't you want to give that back to the one who's watching over all of you and wants the best for you? And I love this thing about, sharing it, talk about it, vertical teaching. You got to talk about it, you got to verbalize it, and including the fact that write them on the door frames of your house and on your gates, and that's exactly what some of our Jewish brothers and sisters do. They put a door blessing on their doors and on their gates, and it's a little metal. Kind of, it's not a box, but it's like a little metal holder, and it looks like it goes vertical, but you tip it just a little bit when you install it, and behind it, it's hollow behind it, and what you're supposed to do, if you're using one of these, it's a door blessing, is that you put Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 6, or 4 through 9, on a little scroll, and you put it inside that when you mount it, the very words that I just read to you. And when you come into your house or into somebody else's house, you touch that as a reminder to keep God first, and that this household keeps God first. And the reason it is angled a little bit is so that energy of loving the Lord is directed into the house. And so I love that simplicity as a reminder. It's not something where like you have to do that or it has to be this way. It's just a physical reminder to love the Lord your God, and that this household does that very thing. And I love that, of somehow figuring out ways, even physical reminders, to keep God at the center of your life. And people do that in all sorts of ways. I know at my house, I have a couple of things on my walls that remind me of that. I was talking to Philip the other day about the fact that I have the words to the hymn in calligraphy, "We Are Called." My wife got it for me, framed, and it sits at the top of our stairs, because we live on the second floor. As you walk into the kitchen, and those words are there. On another wall, I have a painting of all the saints that all the California missions were named after. When Father Sarah came and established the mission system, with its goodness and with its struggles too, let's be honest, he named them after saints, and I have a painting of all the saints of all the missions. On another wall, I bought this print of Mary and the baby Jesus that was stylized in a Celtic rendition of Mary and the baby Jesus. And the first time I saw it, I was just captivated by it. And eventually I bought the print and had it framed, so that there are reminders within my house of what my one desire is, who's number one in my life. And so, but it can be art, it can be music, it can be all of those things. It can be a door blessing, it can be a time of devotion. It doesn't matter, but figure out the things that will remind you to keep you focused that God is the one who's going to watch over you in this life and the next. Now, in the Psalms, there actually is of course, most of the Psalms have a song that comes out of them, but there was a praise or a contemporary worship song that comes from Psalm 27. But I just want to read to you the beginning, verse 4 of Psalm 27. That's kind of the beginning of the psalm. And the psalmist says, "One thing I ask and one thing I seek is that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all of my days, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple." Remember, this is Old Testament, so they're talking about the temple in Jerusalem where the presence of God is. And what this person's saying is, like, all I want in this life and all that I'm looking forward to, that I'm seeking, is that I can be close to God, that I can be in his temple. And the contemporary song, "Better is one day in his courts than thousands elsewhere." I'm looking at Philip because he's off camera, but you know what I'm talking about. But they use this psalm as this entrance into this contemporary tune. But once again, here's the point on this: to keep God as your one desire. What are you seeking in this life? Because what you seek is what is going to be realized in your life. And so keeping God as one desire is that you are seeking him in decisions, in conduct, how we treat others, all that kind of stuff. And if we do that long enough, it becomes second nature to us. Sometimes you have to practice it to get it down. But if you live in a lifestyle that long, then responses when you are challenged, because as Jesus said, if you love those who love you, doesn't everybody do that? But in those challenging moments, that seeking God and seeking his ways will actually become second nature to you, and you will respond that way. But until you get to that place, what you have to do is you have to pause, take a breath, and say, okay, Lord, what am I seeking in this moment? Am I seeking you, or am I seeking revenge, or getting the last word, or any number of things? So I like Psalm 27 because this person's like, this is the one thing that I want. This is what I'm looking for. I want to keep you at the center of my life and to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord. Now, as we close out today, I want to jump to another psalm that, believe it or not, also had a contemporary worship song written about it too. And you might hear it if you've been in church long enough. But Psalm 63, verse 1, listen to this, and I'm then jump down a little bit. "O God, you are my God, and earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you, my body longs for you, in a dry and weary land where there is no water. Because your love is better than life, my lips will glorify you, and I will praise you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands." And I love that for a number of reasons. But first, you might know that Rich Mullins, another great Christian songwriter who's no longer with us, wrote, "O God, you are my God, and I will forever praise you. I will seek you in the morning, and I will learn to walk in your ways, and step by step you'll lead me, and I will follow you all of my days." Well, that's Psalm 63. And what the psalmist is saying, he's like, man, I just want to seek you. I want to keep you as my one desire. And then he goes on to say, my soul thirsts for you in a dry and weary land where there is no water. And it just reminds me that sometimes, not that God wants this, but we do it to ourselves, that we don't start seeking God until we're empty, till we're like in a parched and dry land, like a 110-degree day in the Las Vegas Valley, where it doesn't seem like there's a drop of water in sight, that we're finally, our souls are empty, we are dried up, and then we go, oh, why am I not turning to God who will fill my soul? So sometimes it takes a person or an individual to go through a dry spell. Or, in addiction, people often use the term rock bottom. They got to hit rock bottom before they can start looking up again. And this is exactly what the psalmist is saying. It's like, man, I want to look for you because everything else pales in comparison. And when I don't, I feel like I'm in a dry, dusty desert and my soul is dried up. But you're like a fresh drink of water. And then he's like, but now that I get it, he says, your love is better than life. And so I'm just going to praise you. And so I guess my challenge for you today is to think about how or what are those things you can build into your life, whether they're physical, visual, audio, that you can build in so that it's a reminder to keep God as your one desire, who will feed you spiritually, who will lift you up where you belong and help grow you in a place where you are seeing things from God's point of view, that vertical versus just living horizontally all the time. So think about those things, and maybe you can incorporate those in. But I'm glad you joined me today, and we hope that you can join us on Thursday. We have another great song from this past weekend that we want to share with you, and that came from our 11 o'clock service. So we just hope you can join us, and we hope you have a good, cool rest of your day. And we love you. Take care. God bless. And Philip, will you play us out?